All right, Zach, let's take a look at your paper. MLA format first. So this is correct, but it's not Times New Roman, so make sure you make all of your paper Times New Roman. Everything here is good, except you do not need a comma right there, so you can get rid of that. So your title is here, The Final Quest, One Life Decided by One Decision. If you're going to do a colon and have this sort of subtitle here, A, don't make it italicized. B, don't double space it. You're going to put it right next to each other. C, I don't know if this is the greatest title in the world. And here's why. I don't know if it, and maybe you'll get to this in your paper, but I'm not exactly sure if it was just one decision that ultimately sunk him. I mean, I guess you could say that killing Duncan at the beginning was really doomed him forever, but there are certainly ways to maybe even get out of that or stop it, or after that, kind of make up for it. I don't know. So I'll be interested to see where you go from here, but I'm not exactly too enamored with that beginning part. Also not too enamored with your beginning questions. They're not necessarily original. They're not necessarily, I mean, I know exactly where you're going because I read the play. Yeah, I mean, I know exactly where you're going with it. So I really feel like, and I would probably also recommend using some better language, some better word choice. I mean, what if someone could look into the future? What if they did? Would they just sit by, or etc.? I mean, this is literally the premise of the play. So try to find a different way to kind of get it going. All right. So in Shakespeare's play Macbeth, so Macbeth gets underlined or italicized because it's a play. He receives prophecies that are too good to be true, considering they came from three haphazard, unreliable sources. So I kind of like this way that you word this. Although, are the witches really unreliable since they come true? I don't know. Anyways, but I like the haphazard. That's at least trying to use some more interesting words. He soon realized they're true, but they're not the blessings they once thought they were. Now, here's what I would argue with you a little bit about your paper topic already. I don't even get a good sense of what prompt you're doing right now. I don't get a sense right now, and this should be right here because you're going to jump into your thesis statement here. I don't get a sense yet of what this is supposed to be about, what this whole paper is supposed to be about. And to tell you the honest truth, I'd have to even look at the, go back and look at your choice here to see what prompt you're actually going after. But you got to make it a way more clear what we're going to be talking about here, because otherwise, all I think you're writing about is Macbeth has prophecies that are too good to be true. And so what? Like, what is the prompt we're trying to go after? So your thesis I'm also not thrilled with. Again, word choice I think can be stronger. And I think this would be stronger if this were stronger, if I actually knew where you were going with it. You definitely don't need a comma there because this makes this a run-on sentence. And I think this also works better before the thesis. I think you got to end, with the thesis. In this particular case. So we just need to figure out where we're going first before we get there. All right, Zach. Even after reading your first body paragraph, I am still stumped on where you're trying to go with this. It would be better if your topic sentence, wherever it is, you don't have to make it the first sentence, but if your topic sentence were stronger, I would know kind of what topic you were maybe trying to tackle even a little bit more, but I'm still stumped where you're going with this. Okay, so let's just talk about this. So say, show, mean, let's talk about this pattern. That's not how you spell prophecy. Here's your say, talking about the different prophecies that he gets. You could even throw in some wording to say that he's skeptical of them. And I find it interesting that a lot of your argument in this essay is that the witches tell him a prophecy that is already true. Well, he's never met the witches before, so I mean, I guess you could say that's interesting that maybe the witches already know. Maybe it's a common thing that everyone knows he's the Thane of Cawdor, but the fact that he doesn't know them might, I don't know, maybe justify that. But I also don't know why you're hanging so much faith on that. when they validate the future with a known fact of the present. Okay, so they do that. So what does that mean? Why he shouldn't trust them? Like, again, I don't know where you're going with this paper, and why that is a major sticking point with you. Now, if you go up to your thesis statement again, people who receive prophecies are drawn to question them as well, make impossible choices, and ultimately change their lives. I mean, he might question them at this point, I guess, but I don't see a lot of support for that yet. And then again, when you get down to the mean part, remember the mean part is analysis. These 2 points are enough to make most people think twice about how true the prophecy is. However, after 2 of them come true, the tables begin to turn. Macbeth begins to see some reality in what the witches have said. But again, I don't know how we're getting here, because it's not necessarily analysis that you're doing here yet. Just to say it's an eerie thing when someone receives this. Okay, how is that analysis? Grammatically, it is an eerie thing, so be careful on that. You have a couple different ones, like when you start with however. 2 of these sentences you start with however. However, after Macbeth hears these prophecies, comma, he's extremely skeptical of them. However, after 2 of the prophecies come true, comma, the tables begin to turn. So just be careful of some of that punctuation mistakes that you have in here. All right, as we talk about transitional statements, this transitional statement, Zach, is very similar to what your next sentence is in the next paragraph. So just be conscientious of that. That this, probably I would say this could be stronger. Okay, 2 of them come true. Maybe what are you going to prove in this paragraph? That kind of becomes your topic sentence now. All right. Leads them to question if the witches were actually telling the truth of the future. So no comma here, to seeing them as the prophets that they are. In his moment of joy, after seeing what he has in store, what he has in store for his future, comma. So there's your starting with multiple prepositional phrases. I think you meant to say Macbeth doesn't completely stop to even question the motives of the witches. Instead, comma, he makes a vow in which he says, comma, this whole line. Okay, so we want to be more of an embedded quote here, Zach, to make this stronger. And he says this line to say, you know what, if fate is going to tell me I'm going to become king, why then fate will crown me without my stir. So this is his whole, I'm not going to do anything about it, I'm just going to let it happen to me. So yes, he does believe the prophecies, but I have a hard time saying that this line of his is the final step in him accepting that he will believe in the prophecies. Well, isn't it the first time that he actually says he'll believe? And wasn't the first time he'll believe when they announce him as Thane of Cawdor, and Banquo was like, what? Can the devil speak true? Like, that should be the first time he realizes that these prophecies will become true. So I'm having a hard time buying that this is like the final step or whatever. And then you ask these rhetorical questions. Just how far will he go in his view of these prophecies? Well, we know how far he's going to go because we've read the whole play, right? Once they see into the future, it's nearly impossible to hear about an amazing future. So there's, again, repeating words, word choice is weak, and not immediately fall into believing it. Rarely does someone receive prophecies and question the prophecies' values. So we're missing this is showing possession here, the prophecies' values. Instead, they get forced to make an important decision. So we need to have more. This mean at the end here, Zach, has got to be stronger. I still don't know what you're trying to prove, other than he wants to believe them, and many people, once they get a glimpse of their future, want it to be true. But I don't know still what you're proving here with this particular paper / whole paragraph. So we got to get stronger at that. All right, so finally we get to the end, Zach, and we get into what your topic was actually, which was a struggle between two forces, which was very hard to find in the rest of the paper. Now, here's the reason it was hard to find in the rest of the paper. You waited into the third body paragraph to actually get into this topic a little bit more. This is the kind of stuff that even needs to be in the introduction. between believing and not believing, the struggle that they have here between these two concepts. And I know, even looking at the introduction, I mean, I don't even think it's really that clear in the introduction what that decision is that you're trying to do. So, for the topic of your paper. So I just, this acts, Zach, as your, it really acts as like your mean, if you will, for your whole paper, but you tucked it into one paragraph. And so your whole paper has to be about the struggle and what the struggle shows overall. And it's got to be not just because you haven't got past Act 1, Scene 4 as far as support, as far as examples, as far as anything. You haven't got past that in this whole paper. And this paper should be really an encompassing paper about the whole play of Macbeth. Because really, you can even focus on the end part with his prophecies and how those prophecies at the end follow a similar pattern, and maybe even more encompassing, because he does really believe in what is going to happen. And because of his belief in that, how does that change him? So I really think you can talk more about that at the end here. But this paragraph is really your mean, but it really should be in all of the paragraphs. So just be careful of that. You do have a couple punctuation mistakes in here, so just watch some of those common mistakes. All right, Zach, your life will be a lot easier if you can just follow a pattern here for your conclusion, because this is way too much talking about what you've already talked about. And in fact, some of these, like some of this wording, I mean, that straight up should have been in the introduction. I mean, this whole concept of pulled in two directions, must decide to ignore them or go after, like that literally should be in the introduction. This, I think, is a much better worded sentence as far as should this be in the introduction, minus the use, of course, because you can't use you. So that should have been in the introduction. But conclusion, repeat your central idea first, go through and summarize your main points, and then have a strong clincher here. And this isn't a strong clincher, so you got to fix that. Works cited, that goes in the middle, that gets center justified. This is not the play that we read in class, so I don't know where you got this from, but that's not our play that we read in class, so you got to work on that too. All right, Zach, we just need a lot more focus here. Hopefully you can take what I've said and use it for a rewrite, and hopefully I see a rewrite out of you. Good luck.